What I have is a 1985 Suzuki GS450. This is a bike I've been working on for a number of years, and I'm finally at a point where I'm going to get it put back together and running. The only thing I've got left to do to it is to assemble the head and then put that on with the cylinders here. And I'm just going to show you how to do that. Ideally, you would have been able to see me restore this bike over the last few years, but I failed to do any videotaping of it, so at least you'll see the top end go back on this. This bike's been totally stripped down. Everything's been powder coated. If it needed new parts, it's been put on. So anyway, what we'll do is I'll just show you the final assembly here of the top end of the engine, and hopefully that'll give you some idea, if you're considering doing this, how involved it is. So let's get to it. This will just show you where we're sitting right now. Obviously, everything's put back together at this point except for the cylinders themselves and the head on top of it. I've got the screwdriver just stuck in here right now just to keep the chain from falling all the way in. But as we go in here and we get some close-up shots, you'll see what we've got to be doing. I've already put the new gasket on here, so we're going to be going through this pretty quick here. So what I'm going to do now is to hone out these cylinders. I've already done this one here. As you can see, it's got a nice crosshatch pattern. So I'm going to do it on this side as well. The reason I'm going to do this is just to get the glaze off the cylinder walls. This engine, as I said before, doesn't have a lot of miles on it, but as long as I've got everything out, might as well do it. It's fairly simple to do. Just squirt some oil on the stones here, get her going. It's self-centering. Oil on there. Let's see how this looks. So what you can use on this is just get some rubbing alcohol, and that'll take all this crap off. And it's actually looking pretty good in there. So I think we're done with this then. One thing that I also like to do with the cylinder heads are take these holes for the tappets, or the slides for the tappets here. This head's been powder coated and cleaned and sandblasted and everything else. So what I want to do is I just want to make sure that these tappets are going to slide in and out the barrels here enough. And let me get it for the camera. And same type of thing. It's just glaze. See how it is. Clean this up real well before I send it in, but what I want to do is now just make sure that the tappet slides in there, puts in everything. Put a little oil on this. Just see if it's going to slide in and out. Anyway. slides in and out pretty good. Last thing you want is this thing to bind up or anything. So as long as you got it apart, do the due diligence and get it done. I'm going to clean these up all a little bit more, but we're getting pretty close to time for assembly here. One of the things I have to do with this head is I had to get replace two valves in it, an exhaust valve and an intake valve. And I had an extra intake valve, but I had to get a new exhaust valve from Suzuki. And what I wanted to do, as long as I've got all these things off, what I want to do is to lap these in here, all of them. We'll go back through and just make sure that they're seated again on here. And you just do it by putting on a little bit of this valve rubbing or grinding compound on the valve itself. Goop put on, just slide the valve in there. Each valve has to be lapped to its own valve seat, and especially since these are brand new. So it's nothing more than taking a few minutes on each one, back and forth, spin it every few times so you're not getting any hot spots on there. And you'll notice when you see it, you'll have a nice even surface all the way around. I can just tell by listening to this that it's seating nice. Just takes time, patience. Don't try to get it all done in 5 minutes. It's not going to happen. So it's been a few minutes. Let me see how we're doing. Clean this off. And we got a nice point of contact, symmetrical all the way around. And you can tell by the valve seat, it's the same way on there. Let me zoom in a little bit, maybe you can see better. I've already got the rest of these done, so the next step is I just want to clean up some of this stuff here on the cylinder head before I put the valves in. The big part you want to worry about especially is right around here. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is how these valves go together, so I just thought I would take a minute just to give you an idea of how I'm gonna put them in. This is an intake valve. The intakes are bigger than the exhaust on here. What you have then, the first thing you'll put in is obviously the valve. It'll come up in through the valve guide. Then inside the tappet bore, you have your bottom washer, which will go over the valve guide on the inside of the bore. Next thing you'll mount is the valve stem seal on top of the valve stem on the inside. Right, your valve's coming up. You'll put your inner spring and your outer spring, and then on top of that you have your other washer here, or the valve holder. So that's how that is going to look. Now how the valve is held in is when you're compressing the valve, and I'll show you how to do that. What will happen is you'll have your valve compressor. It'll push down on this with the springs, and you put the C-clamps on here. There's two of them. You release the valve compressor, and it will push up on there, and you'll have your set valve. You'll see how that works. So we're going to start assembling the unit now. I think I mentioned before, but when you take apart the heads, you know, keep all this stuff together. So, and then label each bag so you know what's what on here. Oops, that's the wrong one. That's why it's not fitting in there. This is the bottom one. So that goes in. And it should just slide right down in there, which it does. The valve seal or stem seals, all right, should get new ones if you haven't. They're only a couple of bucks each, but the bottom line is if you're going through all this trouble again, just spend the money to do it. And they just go on there and they'll pop on. Okay, now then we're going to put the valve in, and what we use is some assembly lube. At least I do. I think the service manuals probably say to use motor oil or whatever you're using in the engine, but the assembly lube just prevents any seizing and everything. You can use this on bearings, use it on the lifters, all sorts of stuff. As you go in, put it in from underneath. And the valve seal helps hold that in, but got nice movement in there. Okay, so next goes in are the springs. Go in around that. On top of the springs goes the top cap. And what we do at this point in time then is we get the valve compressor. And I don't know if you folks have one of these or not. If you don't, and you work a lot on the engines or anticipate, they're worth getting. I use this quite a bit. You can probably rent them at an auto parts store. But they're very handy to work, and I'll show you how this goes here. So easiest way to do it, or at least that I do it, is I put the valve head on its side, and I like to use a little grease just to have this stuff stick. And the grease will, you don't want to overdo it, but the grease will help hold on the parts while you're assembling as such. It's just that the grease gets messy too, so. So what we do then is, for the valve compressor, it opens up, and you want this side on the valve spring side. So this goes on. Make sure this is locked like that, and I'll show you here, but just get this centered on the valve and you can start cranking it, and I'll spin this around so you can see. All right, and as I start cranking this up, the valve stem will come up through the top, as you can see right here. See if we can get some light in there. I'm doing this solo here, so it's hard to see. All right, so you want to get about it compressed about that much. And then what you want to do is get these two clips, which fit on the end of the valve stem, like this. They're tapered. And when you release the spring, it'll hold it in place. And these are a pain in the butt. So what I use with these then too are just some toothpicks to put some grease on there. Good old grease. And again, just enough to keep it on the shaft. So that's the bottom one. And this one. Okay, I think we've got it seated on there. And if so, start loosening it up. And it should pop in there. Make sure it's seated. As the spring comes up. Just undo it. Release. And what you've got is one seated valve. Okay. Not too bad. So you got to do that for all of them. Takes a few minutes. You'll get the hang of it. This is the obviously the tappet, and I'll just go ahead and put this in right now. And again, just put some of this lube stuff on there. You can use just motor oil too. You don't need all this fancy stuff, but there you go. So number one exhaust is done, and I'll go through and do the rest of them. All right, so what I'm going to be doing is putting the camshafts on the bench here to get the correct shims in here for the valve clearance. It's a lot easier doing it on the bench top here than it is while the engine's on. And it's actually very simple. These tappets or shims are indicated by, and I don't know if you can see it here, probably not, but it's stamped on here. If they're old, you'll have a hard time reading them, but this is 2.660 millimeters, and they come in increments of 5 millimeters. And I have a bunch of extras that I've used on other bikes and everything like that, and various things. And I've just got something set in here now to, get started with this. So the first thing we want to do is put the camshafts on, and they're marked exhaust and intake on here. They only fit one way, so it's another one of these things that are idiot proof. And I'm just going to put some oil on the bearing surfaces as we spin it, just for to make sure I'm not going to score these up unnecessarily. So those go on, and then you take the caps. Is the exhaust ports here, so the caps are designated. This is the B one, so that'll go here, and this is the A one, and that'll go here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just torque these down quickly. It doesn't have to be perfect, because we are going to be pulling these off on here. So we'll torque these down a little bit. just to make sure that we have enough clearance. And I'm just torquing these down to about 7 foot-pounds. I think the spec is 8. Okay. This should spin freely, so I can already tell that there's not enough clearance on these. What you want to do is make sure that the lobes are up. So it's supposed to be between 0.001 and 0.003. This is a 2, and 2 isn't going anywhere near it. And I don't have a 1 on this, but what I do have, I have a broken 1.0015. To change these, there's a little tool that you can use. You've got this little notch here, all right, and that's where you're gonna pop the thing in and out. And let me just double check before I start screwing around with this. Okay, so we're going to change that one out and get the next size thinner. And you have this tool which rides under here, and these things are only a couple of bucks too, but if you're doing much on the Suzukis, or actually there's a few motorcycles that do this, I believe Yamaha does the same. I've got a Seika 600 as well, and I don't think, never really screwed with that. So you want to pop out the shim here, and just be careful, it'll come right out. Oops, and it went the other way. Okay, so this one is, oh, this is the one, this is a 2.60, it looks like. So let me try a, see if I have a 2.5. Got some extras here, believe it or not. Some of them are new, 2.75. Okay, so let's pull this one off. See if we can get this tool on. Use a screwdriver sometimes just to hold it on while you're getting it. Okay, so what we want to do now obviously is to pull this one out, pop it open, and this one is 2.6 again, so we need something a little smaller. Let's see, get one of these unmarked ones to see where we're at. It's 2.5 here on that one. All right, let's try this one. Let's see if this one will work. Okay. Might be a little bit too much, but we'll see. Let's try it with the 0.02. And 0.02 doesn't allow it to go in. Okay. Pop it out. Scavenge from one of the others, because like I say, these are not, and I might have to order some more if we can't get them the right ones. But I got enough here to make it work, I believe. It's been a couple of days since I started videotaping this. I had to send out and get some extra shims for this because I was running out of the sizes we needed. So the bottom line is everything is all set. I'm going to end up taking these cams back off, and we will then proceed to putting the head and the cylinder back on the bike and hopefully get this thing fired up fairly quickly. Well, you've made it through part one. We've honed out the cylinders, we've rebuilt the heads. Now it's time to start putting the bike back together again. It's actually midwinter here in Michigan, and I'm just getting around to editing the video. So in the second part, we are going to be putting the cylinders back on and the head back on and torquing it down. I broke this down into 4 different parts to keep each segment somewhat short, but I hope you find it interesting. Most of the things you see in this video are going to be applicable to many of the older Japanese bikes. So hope you're enjoying it, and we'll see you in part 2.